Stop for a second. Before you scroll, before your mind runs back to the noise, ask yourself, what did you learn about being good? Maybe they told you to be kind, to help others, to forgive, to never raise your voice, to never hurt anyone. And so you built your life on that. You tried to be the good one, the helper, the peacemaker, the understanding one. But here's the truth. No one told you. Goodness without power is camouflage. It hides your pain, not your strength. You can be the most caring, selfless, compassionate person in the room and still be the one everyone takes advantage of. Because the world doesn't reward goodness. It rewards leverage. It rewards mystery. It rewards those who understand the balance between kindness and power. Machiavelli saw this 500 years ago. He wasn't teaching cruelty. He was warning innocence. He watched good men get crushed under the weight of their own virtue. He saw kings who ruled with mercy get overthrown by those they pardoned. He saw leaders who tried to be loved and died betrayed by those they trusted. So he wrote something that still shakes people to their core. It is much safer to be feared than loved, if one must choose. That line was never about being evil. It was about being awake. Because when you lead with goodness alone, you teach others that you'll tolerate anything. You teach them that your forgiveness has no price. You teach them that hurting you carries no consequence. And once people learn that, they stop respecting you. They might still like you. They might still use the word friend. But deep down, they no longer value you. Let's make this real. Think about the last time you said yes when you wanted to say no. The last time you overextended yourself to help someone who never thanked you. The last time you told yourself, it's okay, I'll let it go, even though it wasn't. You walked away feeling proud for being the bigger person, but something inside you tightened. That quiet, invisible feeling, the sting of self-betrayal. That's the cost of blind goodness. Because every time you silence your boundaries in the name of kindness, you reinforce a lie, that you must suffer quietly to prove your virtue. Machiavelli would have told you that's not virtue. That's submission disguised as morality. Here's what no one tells you. The world doesn't break the cruel people. It breaks the overly kind ones, because they keep giving the world the tools to do it. You forgive too soon. You explain yourself too much. You assume everyone has the same heart, and when they don't, it shocks you. But cruelty doesn't always wear fangs. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it praises you. Sometimes it takes your warmth, drains it, and thanks you for your patience. That's how empires fall. That's how good hearts burn out. Because while you were learning how to be kind, no one was teaching you how to be strategic. And that's what Machiavelli meant by the prince. Not just a ruler of others, but a ruler of yourself. Someone who governs their impulses, guards their energy, and never lets goodness become a weakness. Let's slow down here. Ask yourself this: do you want to be liked, or do you want to be effective? Because you can't have both, not all the time. The moment you stand for something, someone will hate you for it. And if you can't stand to be disliked, you'll never stand at all. Machiavelli knew this too well. He said, "He who seeks to be loved is easily deceived." That line hurts, but it's true. Because people don't love you for your goodness. They love you for what your goodness gives them. When you stop giving, many stop loving. You see this everywhere. In relationships where one person gives endlessly and ends up empty. In workplaces where the kindest workers are exploited because they can handle it. In friendships where you're the therapist, not the friend. And when you finally burn out and withdraw, they say, "You've changed." Number. You've simply stopped enabling the dynamic that benefited them. That's not coldness, that's awakening. But here's the real psychological trap. You weren't born to be this way. You were trained to be this way. When you were a child, your goodness was rewarded. You got love when you behaved. You got attention when you smiled. You got approval when you suppressed your anger. You learned, if I'm nice, I'm safe. If I'm quiet, I'm loved. If I'm forgiving, I'm wanted. And slowly, the real you, the fierce, messy, authentic you, went underground, hidden behind a persona of eternal patience. That's what Jung called the persona, the mask we wear to survive. But every mask, no matter how beautiful, suffocates eventually. Because every time you put peace above truth, you trade your voice for belonging. You become addicted to being seen as the good one instead of being the whole one. Machiavelli would have told you, it's time to reclaim the parts of you you've hidden in the name of harmony. Let's go deeper. Because what happens after you live as the good one for long enough isn't peace. It's exhaustion. You start noticing that your relationships feel one-sided. Your job feels draining. Your kindness feels unnoticed. You start realizing that no matter how much you give, you still end up feeling unseen. And deep down, you wonder, maybe goodness isn't the path to peace after all. Maybe it's the path to being forgotten. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He lived in a time of betrayal, of kingdoms that devoured their own. He watched kind rulers fall, not because they were wrong, but because they didn't understand the laws of power that govern human nature. He realized something brutal. People are not moved by goodness. They are moved by interest. When your kindness aligns with their interest, they love you. When it doesn't, they turn on you. That's why good people get crushed, because they keep expecting moral logic in an amoral world. Let's make this real. Imagine two friends. One is endlessly giving, always there, always listening. The other, self-centered, demanding, often absent. Who do people chase more? Not the giver, the taker, because mystery is magnetic, and generosity, without scarcity, loses value. It's unfair, but it's real. Machiavelli knew it. He wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous, and while you serve their interest, they are yours entirely." That sentence isn't cynicism, it's diagnosis. He wasn't hating humanity, he was describing it. Because when you understand human nature, you stop expecting fairness. You start building strategy. Here's the paradox of goodness. The kinder you are, the less people fear losing you. And when people don't fear losing you, they stop valuing you. So what happens next? They test boundaries. They take. They guilt you. And you, being kind, forgive again. The cycle repeats until you're hollow, and they walk away saying you changed. But you didn't change. You just ran out of pieces to give. And here's the dark psychology behind it. Every time you overgive, you unconsciously teach others that your energy is infinite, that you'll always be there, that you'll always forgive, that you'll always clean up the mess. They stop seeing you as a human being. They see you as a resource. And once people see you as a resource, they feel entitled to you. That's the real betrayal of being good. You become furniture in people's lives, always there, always useful, never truly seen. This isn't just social, it's biological. Your brain releases dopamine every time your kindness earns approval. You feel good when others smile. It validates you. But dopamine doesn't care about truth. It only cares about reward. So you get addicted to being needed, addicted to being liked, addicted to being the safe one. And before long, you're not being kind because it's right. You're being kind because it's comfortable. That's when kindness becomes compulsion. And compulsion is not virtue, it's bondage. Let's pause here. Think about the last time you said yes when you knew it would drain you. Why did you say yes? Maybe you were afraid of being rejected. Maybe you were afraid of being called selfish. Maybe you thought saying no would make you a bad person. That fear, that's the trap. Because the fear of being seen as bad is what keeps you from ever being truly good. Let me explain. True goodness requires clarity. It requires strength. It requires the courage to disappoint others when necessary. But fake goodness, the kind that bends over backwards to please everyone, isn't moral. It's manipulative. It's a subtle form of control. You give and give because you want something back. Love, safety, validation, identity. And when you don't get it, you suffer quietly. Machiavelli would call this a hidden transaction. And he'd tell you to stop making deals no one agreed to. Because when you give expecting unspoken loyalty, you will always end up resentful. This is why so many good people become bitter later in life. They spend years being selfless, thinking it would bring them peace, only to wake up realizing it brought them invisibility. They were never seen for their heart, only for their usefulness. And the longer they go unseen, the darker their kindness becomes. It turns into martyrdom, into passive aggression, into quiet suffering disguised as virtue. And all the while, the world keeps rewarding the bold, the confident, the cunning, the ones who took what they wanted without apology. But here's what most people misunderstand. Machiavelli never told you to stop being kind. He told you to own your kindness. He said power isn't evil. Power is clarity. Knowing when to give, when to withhold, when to speak, when to stay silent. Because goodness without clarity is weakness. But goodness with clarity is influence. You don't have to become cruel to survive. You just have to stop sacrificing truth for comfort. Let's start with a paradox. Every human being wears a mask, but only the wise know that they're wearing one. Machiavelli called it prudence. Jung called it the persona. Both meant the same thing, a social face we wear to survive the world. But here's what most people never realize. Your mask isn't fake. It's functional. It's protection. The problem isn't that you wear one. The problem is when you forget that you do. Every time you walk into a room, your instincts calculate, who do I need to be here to stay safe? To be liked? To belong? That's not manipulation. That's survival. From childhood, you learned which parts of you earned love and which parts brought punishment. You adjusted. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You apologized when you weren't wrong. You stayed quiet when your truth wanted to roar. That's how your mask was built. But over time, you forgot it was just a mask. You started believing it was you. That's where the pain begins. Because when you confuse your mask for yourself, you become a stranger in your own life. You laugh on the outside, but feel hollow inside. You look put together, but wake up anxious. You're surrounded by people, but feel unseen. You've built an identity that others admire, but you can't breathe behind it. That's not life. That's performance. And Machiavelli would tell you this: there's nothing more dangerous than believing your own performance. Because when you start thinking your mask is the truth, you lose control of it. You stop being strategic and start being blind. You start reacting instead of directing. And that's how people get manipulated. Not because they're weak, but because they're unaware of the game being played around them. Let's look at how this plays out. You enter a workplace. You think success comes from being competent and kind. But then you watch the ones who climb the fastest. They're not the nicest. They're the most adaptable. They know when to smile, when to flatter, when to stay silent. They know how to wear masks on purpose. You, on the other hand, are still trying to be yourself, and that's noble. But in a world that runs on perception, authenticity without awareness becomes self-sabotage. Now, Machiavelli never said lie. He said, appear as you must, act as you must. Meaning, don't deceive for cruelty, but understand how perception controls outcomes. Because perception is power. Think about it. The confident person isn't always the smartest. The calm one isn't always the kindest. But people follow them because their presence feels grounded, certain, safe. That's the mask mastered. It's not deception, it's direction. It's shaping how energy flows toward you. Here's the twist. You can't master your mask until you've met your shadow. Because if you don't know the parts of you that hunger for validation, control, revenge, then those parts will wear the mask for you. You'll pretend to be kind, but secretly want to be admired. You'll act humble, but crave superiority. You'll smile politely, but quietly hate everyone around you. The shadow controls the mask, and the mask hides the shadow. It's a perfect prison. That's why Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And Machiavelli would add, "Until you see your own strategy, you will be trapped by someone else's." This is the real inner revolution. To wear the mask consciously, not compulsively. To use it as a tool, not as a disguise. Let's take an example. Imagine two leaders. One pretends to be strong, but every action is rooted in fear. Fear of being replaced, humiliated, disrespected. His mask is brittle. When challenged, he shatters. The other also wears strength, but it's chosen. It's built on awareness. He knows he's not perfect. He knows he plays roles, but he plays them with intent. When challenged, he adapts. That's not hypocrisy. That's wisdom. Because real authenticity isn't about being raw all the time. It's about knowing when to reveal yourself and when to protect yourself. Now let's go even deeper. Why does this matter? Because the mask isn't just social, it's spiritual. When you wear it without awareness, it drains your life force. When you wear it with purpose, it becomes armor. Think of samurai armor, crafted not to hide weakness, but to channel focus. Every piece designed for movement, clarity, survival. That's how your persona should work. Your calmness doesn't mean you're numb, it means you're in control. Your silence doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're strategic. Your smile doesn't mean you're fake, it means you understand human psychology. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. Machiavelli understood this better than most philosophers. He lived in courts full of snakes, betrayal, assassination, gossip. He learned to read faces, tone, posture. He realized that truth, spoken at the wrong time, can destroy you. That honesty, Inti, power is not loud. It does not shout. It does not announce itself. Real power, the kind that lasts, moves in silence. That's what Machiavelli knew. That's what Jung understood. And that's what most people will never learn. Because we live in a world addicted to noise. Everyone wants to be seen, to be heard, to be validated. But the more you crave attention, the less powerful you become. Think of a lion. It doesn't roar when it hunts. It moves quietly, deliberately, invisibly, until the exact moment it strikes. That's how real influence works. It's not in the noise, it's in the control, it's in the restraint. The world teaches you to chase attention, but attention is currency only for those who have nothing deeper. Power, real power, comes from being unreadable, from revealing nothing before its time. Machiavelli wrote that the wise ruler must learn the art of simulation and dissimulation, the ability to reveal or conceal at will. Not because deceit is noble, but because truth without timing is weakness. You can speak the truth, but if you speak it too early, it's not courage, it's carelessness. You can express your emotions, but if you express them to the wrong person, it's not honesty, it's vulnerability, weaponized. So here's the rule of silent power. Don't rush to be understood. Be willing to be misunderstood. Let people think they know you. Let them misjudge you. Let them fill the silence with their own projections. Because while they do that, you're watching, you're learning, you're seeing who they really are. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you start observing others. And that's where true clarity is born. Jung would say that silence isn't the absence of communication, it's the presence of consciousness. When you stop reacting, you create space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies the only true freedom a human being can ever have. The freedom to choose who you are in each moment. The untrained mind reacts. The powerful mind waits, observes, calculates, moves once. and never needs to move again. Think of the people who once tried to provoke you. They spoke loudly, confidently, trying to get a reaction. And when you didn't respond, when you just looked at them, they grew uncomfortable. Why? Because silence flips the power dynamic. The one who stays calm owns the moment. The one who reacts gives it away. That's why kings had courtiers. They rarely spoke. Their stillness forced others to reveal themselves. Silence makes others show their cards. Machiavelli's greatest insight wasn't about deception, it was about timing. He said, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by strategy." Force is noise, strategy is silence. The one who speaks first loses leverage. The one who explains first loses mystery. The one who reacts first loses power. That's why the powerful don't interrupt. They let others talk, because people always reveal more than they intend when they're comfortable. Now imagine living this way. Someone criticizes you, and instead of defending, you smile. Someone tries to provoke you, and instead of exploding, you observe. Someone lies to you, and instead of calling them out, you take note. You stop chasing the illusion of control and become control itself. Because power isn't what you show, it's what you can hold back. And here's where Jung comes back into play. He said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Because when you do that, when you've met your own shadow, your anger, your envy, your chaos, no one outside you can control you anymore. If someone insults you, you don't flinch, because you've already faced that insult inside yourself. If someone tries to manipulate you, you don't panic, because you already know your own weakness. They can't use your ego against you, because you've already seen through it. That's silent power. It's not indifference, it's integration. Look at the people who always need to prove something, to argue, to show they're right, to get the last word. They think they're powerful, but they're addicted to reaction. And addiction is the opposite of power. The more you need to prove your worth, the more you reveal your insecurity. The more you fight to be seen, the more invisible you become. Because people stop listening to noise after a while. But they never stop wondering about silence. Silence is magnetism. When you stop chasing, things start coming to you. It's like gravity. The stiller you are inside, the more the world rearranges itself around you. People start to lean in. They start to sense something different, something grounded, something unshakable. They can't quite define it. They'll call it confidence, charisma, presence. But it's none of those. It's simply energy conserved. When you stop leaking energy through constant reaction, you start radiating it. And that radiation, that calm density, is what every great leader, mystic. So here we are. After all the masks, the silence, the strategies, what remains? What's left when you've learned to read people, to control your energy, to master your emotions? What's left when the world no longer fools you, but you realize you can't hide from yourself? This is the part Machiavelli never wrote about, and the part Jung never stopped warning us about. Because there comes a moment, after all the victories, after all the control, after all the illusions fade, when you meet the one person you can never outsmart, yourself. That's the final battlefield, not the court, not the marketplace, not the relationship. The battlefield is within. And here's the truth most people run from. The longer you avoid yourself, the more powerful your shadow becomes. You can master the art of influence, but if you haven't met your own pain, your power turns hollow. You become the very thing you were trying to protect yourself from, a mask, wearing a mask. This is why silence matters. Because when the noise fades, you hear what you've been hiding. When the performance ends, you see what's real. And when you stop needing to control the world, you finally meet the part of you that needed control in the first place. That's not weakness, that's evolution. The ancient alchemists had a phrase for this moment. Solve et coagula. Dissolve and then reform. To find your true self, you must dissolve all the false ones. The pleaser, the performer, the controller, the hero, the victim. Every persona you've used to survive, thank it, honor it, but let it go, because it served its purpose. It got you here, but it cannot take you further. Machiavelli taught survival, Jung taught integration, but both point to the same destination, freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, the freedom to no longer need to. That's real power, that's real peace. It's when your mask serves your truth, not hides it. It's when your silence protects your peace, not your fear. It's when your influence flows naturally, not through strategy, but through stillness. Because when you are whole, you no longer manipulate to get love. You embody it. You no longer chase meaning, you radiate it. Look at the world around you. People are chasing pleasure, chasing control, chasing validation, and yet they wake up empty. They don't realize that what they're chasing is not outside, it's within. They are searching for themselves in every reflection but their own. But once you see it, once you recognize the game, you stop playing by its rules. You stop reacting. You stop begging for attention. You stop explaining who you are. You just are. That's what presence feels like. The quiet, magnetic force of someone who's no longer divided. Someone who has looked at their darkness and not flinched. Someone who has tasted silence and found nourishment there. That kind of presence doesn't need to impress. It doesn't need to prove. It doesn't need to fight. It just exists. And in doing so, it changes everything around it. Because truth doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be lived. So here's your final paradox. The more you chase power, the weaker you become. But the more you understand yourself, the more powerful you already are. Power without self-awareness corrupts. But power born from awareness, that's liberation. That's the point where Machiavelli's strategy meets Jung's soul. One without the other is imbalance. Together, they become wisdom. You've now walked both paths, the outer and the inner, the political and the psychological, the mask and the mirror. And maybe now you understand the secret that few ever do. Power isn't something you take, it's something you become. When your actions align with your awareness, you become unstoppable, not because the world fears you, but because you no longer fear yourself. So when you leave this video, remember this. Let your silence be your strength. Let your awareness be your armor. And let your presence speak louder than your words ever could. You don't have to chase influence. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to show your power. You are the power. Always have been. You just forgot, because the world taught you to look everywhere but within. Now, you remember. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And Machiavelli would nod quietly, because he'd know that the one who truly knows himself needs no mask, no manipulation, no throne. He's already free.